Thank you for joining us today for this exciting announcement and preview of our upcoming special exhibition. Before we begin, I would like to remind you to please feel free to post any questions in the Q&A section, and we will answer them at the end of our formal presentation. For our members of media, a digital media package is available after the announcement for your use. I would now like to introduce Squetzemelt, Elder Buddy Joseph of the Squamish Nation, who is Vancouver Art Gallery's first elder in residence, to bring us some greetings. Welcome, Elder Buddy.
Oh, good morning, and thank you. Osiam, Tanoya, Pensacoito, Squetzemelt, Anstamox, Na. Good morning, everyone. I'd like to welcome you to our announcement today. And welcome to our traditional unceded territory of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh peoples. I'd also like to thank you for being in our Musqueam unceded territories. And welcome. Chinquin Mintumi. We'll see you.
Great, thank you, Elder Buddy. I would now like to introduce Mr. Anthony Kendall. He is a Vancouver Art Gallery CEO and Gallery Director.
Thank you, Laura. Thank you, Elder Buddy. It's great to see everyone joining us today. The Vancouver Art Gallery is thrilled to be hosting and co-presenting this exhibition of the folios at the gallery. This project complements the gallery's history of exhibitions that explore the intersections of disciplines, media, and popular culture, and places art in broader cultural contexts. The gallery serves as an essential site in our community for us to come together, to learn, to discuss the ideas of our times. And Shakespeare's work has provoked centuries of debate and is as relevant today as ever. This provides a compelling opportunity to come together with our partners to create something that none of us could have created in the same way unilaterally. At this time, please join me in welcoming Santa Ono, the 15th President and Vice Chancellor of the University of British Columbia.
Thank you, Anthony. And hello, everyone, and thank you for being here today. It's my great honor to announce that the University of British Columbia has recently acquired, through donation, a complete first edition of William Shakespeare's Comedies, Histories, and Tragedies, and that the first folio, as it's also known, will be available for all of Vancouver and British Columbia to experience through, for all time, the Shakespeare First Folio, an exhibit that opens today and runs until March 20th, 2022. The university is thrilled to be collaborating with the Vancouver Art Gallery to share this cultural treasure with our fellow Vancouverites, British Columbians, and Canadians. The acquisition of this rare book was made possible by a consortium of donors from across North America and with the generous support of the Department of Canadian Heritage. We are deeply grateful for their support in making it publicly accessible to the UBC community, the Vancouver community, and beyond. I would also like to thank my colleagues, Dr. Gregory Mackey and Catherine Colsbeek in the Faculty of Arts and the UBC Library for their tireless efforts in making this possible. This is truly a great day for UBC, Vancouver, British Columbia, and for Canada.
Thank you, Mr. Kendall and Dr. Ono. Now I'd like to invite Dr. Susan Parker, University Librarian at UBC, to say a few words.
Thank you, Laura. And hello and welcome to everyone. Thank you for joining us today. The UBC Library is thrilled to be the caretaker of this magnificent copy of Shakespeare's First Folio and to be able to share this news with you. The first folio is a cornerstone of English literature, but its impact over time has been global in scope. It was published in 1623. That's 7 years after Shakespeare's death. And it was credited with preserving almost half of his plays. Only 235 copies of the first folio remain around the world, mostly in the UK and the US. And this is only the second copy in Canada. In comparison to many of our peer institutions, we are a relatively young university library, and we are deeply grateful to the many foundations and individual donors who have been essential in making this acquisition possible for us. And I would also like to thank Christies, who were our enthusiastic partners in this very ambitious project. I'm especially grateful to Margaret Ford and Christina Geiger, who worked alongside Greg and Catherine over the past year to bring this item under public ownership. This kind of opportunity comes around but once in a lifetime. There are fewer than 10 privately owned copies of the first folio remaining in the world, and Christies was a critical partner in making this possible for us at UBC.
Thank you, Dr. Parker. Now please welcome Dr. Gage Averill, Dean of the Faculty of Arts of UBC, to share remarks.
Thank you, Laura, and good morning, everyone. UBC's acquisition of Shakespeare's first folio has placed this tangible piece of humanity's heritage within reach for an enormous number of people who might never otherwise have had access to it. At UBC Arts, we're excited about the possibilities it allows for teaching, research, learning, and just for inspiration. We're excited by the possibilities for our students, our faculty, and staff across many departments within the Faculty of Arts, from theater and film to the Department of English, Language, and Literatures, to History, School of Creative Writing, and beyond. Since the book's arrival at UBC this last fall, UBC faculty have initiated multiple projects with students, some of which will be part of the exhibition at the Vancouver Art Gallery. There are also plans for additional initiatives in the year 2023, which marks the 400th anniversary of this book. And we look forward to further collaboration with community organizations and engagement with the public in British Columbia. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Averill. On that note, it is with great pleasure that I introduce Christopher Grays. He is the founding artistic director of Bard on the Beach Shakespeare Festival, who will say a few words about what the first folio means for Vancouver. Mr. Gaze also lent his talent in providing the commentary that is used for this exhibition's mobile guide.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Well, now I'm absolutely thrilled that UBC has been able to acquire this most magnificent and unique first folio. Vancouver, it's become a city that has a great appreciation for William Shakespeare, as seen by the massive success of Bard on the Beach over the past 33 years. And this most precious book will become another jewel in the crown for UBC, for the Vancouver Art Gallery, and of course for Bard. It will inspire everyone who values and enjoys the plays of Shakespeare. It's extraordinary that he's alive now as he ever was. His plays are constantly fresh and relevant through the interpretation of artists here in Vancouver and around the world. And for example, at Bard, we'll be staging 2 of his great plays this summer, A Midsummer Night's Dream and Romeo and Juliet. And we'll have the opportunity to rediscover their timeless appeal, their messages. We're part of a worldwide community that loves these texts. And this folio literally shows us their precious roots. It's a unique bridge from the past to what matters today. And all of us at Bard are delighted to support the launch of its new life in Vancouver. A hearty congratulations to all those who have worked so hard and been so generous to bring this wonderful project to fruition.
Thank you, Mr. Gaze. We are also very lucky to have an esteemed group of subject matter experts who are available during the Q&A section of our program or for individual interviews after. I'd like to introduce Dr. Patricia Badir. She is the head of the Department of English Languages and Literatures at UBC. Her expertise includes Renaissance literature and drama, medieval drama, and Canadian theater history. Dr. Dennis Austin Britton, Associate Professor, Department of English Languages and Literatures, UBC. His specialty is on early modern English literature with a focus on the history of race, critical race theory, Protestant theology, and the history of emotion. Ms. Catherine Kalsbeek, she is the head Rare Books and Special Collections at the UBC Library, and she can speak on the acquisition of the first folio for UBC. Dr. Link Kessler, he is Associate Professor, Institute for Critical Indigenous Studies and English at UBC, who speaks the relation of communications technology to cultural change in both early modern England and the circumstances of contemporary Indigenous life. Dr. Greg Mackey, he is Associate Professor, Department of English Languages and Literatures, UBC Norman Colbeck Curator at Rare Books and Special Collections, UBC Library, and he will be leading the live tour of the exhibition shortly. Dr. Patrick Penningfather, he is Assistant Professor, Theater and Film, Department of Theater and Film at UBC, and he can speak on how and why digital strategy emerged as an accompaniment to the acquisition of the first folio and influenced the acquisition of the folio, how the development and research of emerging technologies such as mixed reality, augmented reality, and virtual reality under the current umbrella of XR will support the reinvention and transformation of Shakespeare across different virtual stages, and how different initiatives in XR will integrate faculty, staff, and students. And we also would like to welcome Ms. Margaret Ford. She's the Senior Director, International Head of Group Books and Science at Christies. She is a recognized authority on early printing, and Ms. Ford has handled rare books ranging from Editio Princeps of classical texts, beautiful botanical books, groundbreaking scientific texts, and great world literature. She has handled the sale of 7 copies of Shakespeare's first folio in the past 5 years, and very likely the most handled by a single person in almost a century. I would now like to turn the presentation over to Dr. Greg Mackey, and I believe Ms. Kalsbeek will also be joining him, who will take us on a live commentary of the exhibition space for all time, the Shakespeare First Folio.
Thank you so much, Lara. And I'd like to welcome everyone into our gallery space, which has been inspired by Shakespeare's theater. This exhibition will mark the first time that all 4 17th century Shakespeare folios have been displayed to the public in Vancouver. And we're very excited to share these books forward with you. What you're looking at right now is the main event. This is the copy of the first folio that UBC acquired with the generous support of a consortium of donors and the federal government this past fall. We're putting this exhibition on at the Vancouver Art Gallery because we're committed to opening up access to a cultural treasure like this for the maximum number of people possible. And this partnership allows us to be able to display these magnificent items in a setting that properly befits them. As you walk through the exhibition, you'll see that the folio is, or the folios, all 4 of them rather, are being contextualized in a number of different ways. So visitors will have a chance to experience not only the books themselves, but different ways of understanding and appreciating and apprehending them in different contexts. We're very excited to be making this, making the wonder of these books also accessible to people who wouldn't otherwise have the opportunity to do so. One of our main points in putting together this project, this acquisition, was to ensure that cultural properties of this magnitude and stature are not only confined to certain parts of the world, but are more equitably distributed, so that British Columbians and Western Canadians and even people from the Pacific Northwest in the United States can come and actually see them in person. So now you're seeing the third and fourth folios that were generously loaned by partner institutions, by the Harry Ransom Center at the University of Texas at Austin, and the British Columbia Legislative Library in Victoria. The first and the second folios on display are the property of UBC Rare Books and Special Collections. The exhibition is also being contextualized visually with a number of murals on the walls that depict various aspects of Shakespeare's time and life. And around the corner, around the corner, you will see just behind where the camera is now positioned, one of our signature images, the mural that symbolic mural that bridges 17th century London and contemporary Vancouver. And this is, our hope is to share the delight that inspires with all the visitors here. Thank you.
Just to add what Greg said, we're so thankful to our consortium of donors from across North America who made the acquisition possible. But we're also very thankful to the Delmas Foundation in New York, who provided funding for this exhibition. And without their assistance, we would not have been able to provide you with this experience today.
Great, thank you, Ms. Kelspeak and Dr. Mackey. If you have any questions now, please, this is the time to type them into the Q&A section. I do have some questions that have come in. The first one looks like it's intended for Ms. Margaret Ford. So the first question is, Christie's auction house facilitated the sale of the folio to UBC as a private transaction, not at auction. Can you expand on why?
Well, behind that might be just the expectation that an auction house doesn't necessarily do private transactions, which is not the case. I mean, in 2021 alone, Christie's overall transacted 1.7 billion pounds worth of sales. So it's perhaps not quite as widely known as our auction sales, but it's certainly a very large part of it. But then on the other side of the question, perhaps, why someone would want to either sell or buy privately as opposed to at auction. Oftentimes, there are different reasons, but oftentimes discretion might be one of them. Timing could be another one, because otherwise, obviously, we have auctions at certain times of the year in any particular category. And then certainly from the buyer's point of view, and specifically institutional buying, then it can be very helpful when there's a fixed price. So in this case, I was working very early on, very quickly, with, and my colleague Christina Geiger in New York as well, with Greg and Catherine. And so we were able to, we knew of their interest already from a copy, the Mills College copy that we had sold at auction a few months before we started working on this transaction. And so knowing of their interest, when an opportunity came up to both source and then speak to them about a potential private sale or potential sale, it just seemed to make most sense to do this in a private context. So it really just kind of fits those particular circumstances. And I just have to say again that it was a really wonderful collaboration with them, and to be able to share one's passion for Shakespeare with two partners like Catherine and Greg, and I know all the team behind them as well, was extremely gratifying.
Thank you for that, Ms. Ford. Oh, I'm sorry, Dr. Mackey.
I was just going to say thank you so much, Meg. It was a delight to work with you too.
Great. Actually, there's another question, Ms. Ford, that I believe is fitting for you as well. I see that you have handled the sale of 7 copies of the book in just 5 years, and yet it is called a rare book.
Yes, well, so we already heard, I think from Susan Parker, actually, there are 235 copies of it that we now know that survive, and they come from a huge, big variety of completeness. So that is relatively rare, but when one talks about rare books, 235 is not a particularly small number. So the way that I kind of handled 7 in quite a short space of time really partly started in 2016, which was the 400th anniversary of Shakespeare's death, 1616. I curated a sale here in London of just the 4 folios and was able to offer at that time a first folio that was incomplete, but it escaped all the notice of the bibliographies and censuses, and so therefore had really not been known. Its existence had not been known for about 250 years and had remained in the same family collection. So it got a lot of attention and sold quite well. So because of that, then I was offered some other copies, sold a few of them privately. Again, based on that, then Mills College approached Christies 2 years ago to potentially sell its copy, which we did and set a record price for that, almost $10 million in 2020. So yes, so this kind of just, one kind of brought out another one. And I have to say it's been, just a wonderful opportunity because each copy is unique and each one has its own special characteristics and its own history, and that's been really wonderful to work with each one and discover that. And indeed, the one that UBC has now acquired has a fantastic history as well that I know that Catherine and Greg and others at the Art Gallery will be bringing out as well, and it adds so much to just our knowledge of books and provenance and how they've been used over the centuries.
Great, thank you for that. The next question is, how might access to a first folio change how we understand Shakespeare and his place in the 21st century? Dr. Britton, I think this is a question for you.
Yes, hi, good morning. One of the things about the first folio that was mentioned earlier is that there are a number of plays that only have come to us through the first folio. And a play that I often work on, I think about, is the Shakespeare's Tempest, a play that has been so important in the history of ideas, particularly thinking about colonialism and post-colonial identities and political action. And I think what this first folio can actually really allow us to do is just to think about how important material objects are for the transmission of ideas and knowledge. And there's a way in which having this object here in Vancouver, I love the mural as well. I think it's a really great metaphor for the way in which this book is going to allow us to think about just how important this book is to the ways in which we think about certain topics and ideas today.
Great, thank you for that. I now have a question for Dr. Lynn Kessler. Dr. Kessler, you have worked in both Shakespeare studies and Indigenous studies. What is the importance of the folio or acquisition of the folio in both of those fields?
Well, this is a question that I have been thinking about for, I don't know, probably close to 60, 65 years. In part of my career, I taught between 50 and 60 courses in Shakespeare, but I've also taught Indigenous studies, and I've worked primarily in that field at UBC. And I think what's important about the folio is it directs us to a moment of articulation in Western culture, where many forms that had previously organized information orally began to make the transition into print. And the folio is a really good example because, as people have pointed out, it is the surviving textual copy of half of Shakespeare's plays, in which were composed not necessarily composed in writing, but recorded and then printed later. Unlike, say, the works of Ben Jonson, which were published in 1616, which were clearly written. He was a scholar. And that's important because it's a kind of a cultural transition that once printing and literacy become established, becomes very hard to see. We tend to interpret everything back in terms of literacy and think of Shakespeare as an icon of literacy, where that may not have been quite what he was at the time of his plays were first produced. The reason that's important is because as literacy becomes entrenched in Western culture, it certainly structures the interface in North America between Europeans and Indigenous people who are still maintaining orally based systems of transmitting information and knowledge. And nowhere is this, in fact, more evident than in the west coast of British Columbia, with its really highly developed oral traditions, which are maintained with great difficulty through the 20th century and are still with us even today. So understanding that cultural articulation between Indigenous culture and the literate culture of mainstream Canada, and really appreciating the cultural difference that lies there, can really benefit from looking back at this earlier point where that kind of transition is so evident in English culture, and in which the folio is really an icon of that change and the difference that it embodies.
Great, thank you for that, Dr. Kessler. Another question has come up here. The first folio has been digitized many times and is widely available online. Why is having a copy of the real thing so important for UBC in Vancouver? Dr. Badir, I think this question is for you.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for that question. I like to think of this book as a bit of a time traveler. It's coming to us, or it's come to us from another world, another place, and another time. And that makes it a very, very special thing. And I think for our students in particular, we can't underestimate the power of actually being able to handle an object that comes to us from Shakespeare's world. Greg, in his introduction, spoke of the wonder of this book. It's a wonderful Shakespearean word, that wonder. And I think it's just so incredible that our students and other members of the public, our acting community here in Vancouver is going to experience that wonder, is going to be able to touch that wonder and have some kind of immediate contact with it. I think that's very, very special indeed.
Great, thank you, Dr. Badir. We have another question here, and it looks like it's for Dr. Pennyfather. The question is about how emerging technologies enable and enhance new forms of engagement with Shakespeare.
Thank you. Since the start of this initiative, we talked about the importance and role of emerging technologies to increase access to the folio and also to offer new experiences for new audiences on new virtual stages. So at the Vancouver Art Gallery, audiences are going to get a glimpse of augmented and virtual reality projects that will come to life this year and in 2023. And this will engage partnerships with XR company Christies Interactive, Sawmill Motion Capture Studios, and proudly with the Emerging Media Lab at UBC, where I'm a faculty in residence. It will also involve theater and film students, local and national actors and directors. Our intention is to recreate, to reimagine, to recontextualize different characters, different plays from Shakespeare's folio in today's world and uncover and investigate how much resonance that has today. We'll use technologies such as augmented reality, virtual reality, and mixed reality that will also give voice to lesser known and often marginalized characters in various Shakespeare's plays. I can also talk about future collaborations that will allow this to occur, and this critical reimagination of texts. They've already begun with Dr. Sabina Magliocco from UBC, Dr. Hallie Marshall, Dr. Dennis Britton, and Stephen Heatley. I'm excited about all the possibilities that will arise from this collaboration.
Great, thank you, Dr. Pennyfather. I will take a couple more questions from our Q&A before we conclude the media preview. I'll take one of the easy one. Are copies of the mural available for purchase? I know a lot of people are excited about that. Yes, they will be. It will be available at the gallery store. The exhibition opens this Saturday to the public, January 15th. And so hopefully we will have that inventory at the store available. You can also check the gallery store online inventory on their website. Another question here is just surrounding the arrangements for how the first folio was being protected and cared for here in Vancouver. Perhaps Ms. Kalsbeek, if you'd like to speak to that.
Sure, Laura, I'm happy to. While the folio is at the art gallery, there will be security arrangements in place, as you may expect. I don't want to go into detail concerning those security arrangements, but just please be rest assured that's something we take very seriously. And then once the folio is back at UBC, we're working with our partners at the Folio Shakespeare Library and other institutions around North America and throughout Europe to put together a very robust security plan for the folio. So we want to ensure that everyone has access to the folio, whether that be physically or virtually, and that's going to be something we think very carefully about in the next few months as it's on display here at the art gallery. But rest assured that when it's back at UBC, you will be able to contact a member of Rare Books and Special Collections for more information about how you might access a folio in a virtual form, or it could be that we could set up appointments for people to view the folio in a one-on-one environment. But we are currently engaging with a number of institutions and individuals to develop those guidelines and ensure that we are finding the right balance between access, but also ensuring that this book is around for another 400 years. As people might know, the book does celebrate its 400th birthday next year. And so that is something we are thinking very carefully about how do we preserve this book for the long term so that in 400 years, people still are able to come and experience its magic firsthand.
Great, thank you, Ms. Kalsbeek. And I just also wanted to add, because I know there's quite a bit of interest regarding sort of the added technology to the exhibition. We will be uploading a highlight video featuring this technology that Dr. Penny Father spoke about on the website soon. Our exhibition page for this should be live any moment now. And so just watch out for that video. And then, of course, we would love to welcome you all to come in and experience this if you can in person, because it is quite the experience, once in a lifetime type of opportunity. I will conclude, that concludes our Q&A section for this morning. I would just like to remind for those who are tuning in, who are members of the Vancouver Art Gallery, we will have an exclusive members morning preview on Saturday, January 15th at 9 a.m. before it opens to the public. The public viewing starts at 10 a.m. In celebration of For All Time, the Shakespeare First Folio exhibition, we are also launching a 3-part webinar series on William Shakespeare's plays. In 1606, during an outbreak of the bubonic plague, when theaters were shuttered in England, Shakespeare wrote 3 of his most famous tragedies, King Lear, Macbeth, and Antony and Cleopatra. In recognition of the cyclical nature of history and our own global pandemic situation, the Vancouver Art Gallery focuses on these plays during our 2022 webinar series, Contemporary Shakespeare, in collaboration with UBC and with Bard on the Beach. The first program will be happening on Wednesday, January 26th, and will be featuring esteemed Shakespeare professor Paul Yaknin, Melissa Carmen Lee, who is the Director of Education and Public Programs here at the Gallery, and Dr. Gregory Mackey, who you met earlier today. He is the Norman Callback Curator, UBC Library of Rare Books and Special Collections, and this will be held online. The next one in the series will be held on Wednesday, February 23rd at 12 p.m. And this will cover Macbeth with Mary Hartman, the Director of Education at Bard on the Beach Shakespeare Festival, and Melissa Carmen Lee, who again is the Director of Education Public Programs at the Gallery. And they will delve into Akira Kurosawa's iconic film, Throne of Blood, and Joel Coen's new film, The Tragedy of Macbeth, among other contemporary cultural markers and references to the Scottish play. The next one will be on Wednesday, March 23rd at 12 p.m. And this will be Antony and Cleopatra. And more information will be coming for this particular program really soon. You should check out these programs and more at vanartgallery.bc.ca/events, quite a mouthful, or you could just check out vanartgallery.bc.ca for more information. So for members of the media, as I had said earlier, a press kit will be emailed to you following this morning's preview with copies of the press releases, contact sheets, and image links. To schedule interviews with any of our presenters or to book a media visit to the gallery, please contact me directly at lluna@vanartgallery.bc.ca. Thank you again for joining us, and thank you for your continued support of the Vancouver Art Gallery and UBC.